A conversation can change your life. We are two ordinary women looking to have extraordinary and authentic conversations. Our desire is for this to be a place where all are welcome, to come as you are, willing to emotionally grow, gain confidence, and tap into your internal wisdom.
When you know and utilize your strengths, the capacity to be forgiving, kind, and encouraging is increased exponentially. We all have amazing strengths and positive attributes. So let's learn from each other. We are delighted you are here on this journey with us and hope you will invite a friend to join you here. Welcome.
I'm Connie Wilder with my podcast partner, Sue Riekels, and we are delighted that you are here. Welcome to Intentional Conversations. So Sue and I were talking and we were going back and forth on what topic shall we start with? And we decided on the topic of grace. Grace. Grace for ourselves, grace for others, space for grace. That concept of grace. The divine defines grace as that undeserved favor. Undeserved favor. So there's nothing that we can do to earn someone's grace or to earn the divine's grace. Sue, what do you want to say? What does grace mean to you?
Well, thank you for that opening and the definition. And I really want to just pause but for a moment with the undeserved word, because there's nothing we can do to get it. There's nothing that we achieve. And in that space, is it non-judgmental? So what comes to my mind is being grace-filled or offering grace to someone else and receiving it ourselves is in a non-judgmental space. And as you alluded to with the divine in that undeserved favor, it's just for being human that we get to have grace. How about yourself, Connie? What comes to mind for you when you hear grace?
Well, perhaps that's why it's so difficult to be full of grace, even though I want to be seen as someone who is full of grace. And it's important that we turn that flashlight of grace, because are we able to have more grace for someone else than we have for ourselves? I'm not sure about that. In fact, I want to turn that flashlight of grace on myself so that I'm a beacon of light. And I want to be grace and graceful in the world. I don't know if that's an answer to your question or not, but
And I
there's
think it's a discussion, right? And what came to mind when you said, putting it towards ourselves, the question I asked or came to mind was, can we give anyone else grace if we haven't first given ourselves grace?
it's so
And
powerful.
for our human imperfections and things we've said, done, whatever, can we actually offer it to someone else if we're not experiencing it?
That's so powerful, Sue. I think that's part of our daily routine, or what I want my daily routine to be full of, right? I want to be full of grace. I want to be this grace overflowing. I want my cup to overflow, but I want it to overflow with the divine's grace. How about yourself?
Yeah, and it sounds easy when we say it like that. And I'm just pausing right now in how difficult it is to play out each and every day, to really feel that amount of grace for ourselves, but then for others as well. What happens when we disagree with someone? What happens when we believe differently than someone? Where does grace come in that relationship so that we can maybe hold each other's differences? I think that's what's coming to my mind. Also, as I hold myself, can I hold my own differences? Like some days I don't show up as well as others. Can I still hold myself with that grace? And to me, that's challenging, I think, when we see it from all those perspectives.
Yeah, you are spot on. And when there's grace, when there is grace, I feel like I can do anything. I feel like I'm unstoppable. And yet, what puts you in the space for grace?
And that is a really, really good question. I think for me, it is when I feel connected. When I feel connected to the divine, when I feel connected to myself and the space that I'm in, I have a higher capacity to have grace for myself and others. When life is really busy and active and I'm going from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, whew, something comes in, ugh, I might not respond as positively as I would in other times where I'm connected, I'm going a little slower, the pace is different. It feels like I can extend more grace in those moments. I think for me, it is being connected and intentional with myself and my internal compass and the divines in order to extend that again, both to myself and to others. How about yourself, Connie? How do you
Yeah,
yourself?
I want to say that that's so beautiful. The connection is what I'm so hungry for, the connection with others. And and yet that connection to myself, Sue, you are someone who I feel like is so strong at always saying, let's pause for a moment and bringing in the space for grace, even, right? Even that space, because we've got it takes up space. And so how do we create that? I love your explanation of how you want to be connected, to the divine, to others. And I feel like you're very good at that in connecting to all of that space for grace in our daily lives. And in fact, how do I do it? I want to bank on your answer, that connection. How do we feel connected to others, right? And so how do I do that? I have a pregame routine for any of my work stuff, my facilitation stuff. However, I do not have a pregame routine for my own life. And I feel like the pregame routine for presenting or facilitating, I can give you all kinds of examples of what to do in that space. Yet, how do I create my own pregame routine for creating more space for grace in my personal life? And I definitely have room for that. I absolutely have room for that.
Well, and I want to say thank you for your acknowledging of mine. And I want to just say I find it really hard. And while it came across to you, I think as I've got it in the bag or I've been doing it, that's not always the case. And I think notice for myself, I'm able to do it better with friends or with colleagues and in the work environment. We don't have distractions, nothing else is going on. I can focus 100% on you. Yes. But when you're cooking dinner and you have kids coming through and your phone is ringing and the dog needs to go outside and fill in the blank, that's when I notice there's less grace and less compassion and understanding for the people who I probably love the most, who are closest to me. And I think that is the piece we're finding and noticing it's always an ongoing work. It's not something we achieve and are like, oh, we've got this. I think it is that intentionality again. A lot of these things take intentionality or they just don't happen. And I think grace is one of them, of being mindful of how we show up. And when life is really busy, like I always use dinner time as one, when the kids were younger, everything kind of hit at one time and you're like, oh, is how do we really show up in the way that we want to in all those times? And I think that's the challenging question.
Yeah. And you mentioned that mindfulness or to be mindful. And to me, one awareness is one of the divine's gifts. That awareness of self and the awareness of a situation can be such an emotional gift, if not an emotional, what's it called, a lifeline, if you will, something for us to grab, because that awareness ought to develop us into better human beings. It gives us additional options, that awareness. And I know we're not speaking, our topic is not on awareness, yet it's so related to grace and how we create grace in our own lives. In fact, the awareness is that opportunity to make a better choice for myself. So if in fact life is getting busy and even my day-to-day dinner time and I've got the phone and I've got this and I've got that going on and I'm making dinner and my husband would laugh at that because he'd be like, Connie, when do you make dinner? Yet, I know what you mean. And so that awareness is that opportunity to make a better life, to make a better choice for my life. And that awareness, I'm having my own aha moment right now. And that's been part of the intentionality of this podcast series in and of itself.
Absolutely. And I know we're going to talk more about this later because you and I have shared this a lot, is about creating neurons that wire together, because when they wire together, or when they fire together, they wire together. And I think it is about these patterns. And even if dinner time is my hard time, how can I take 2 minutes before the craziness starts and to really do a practice that creates new neurons for my own brain in being more intentional? I think there's all sorts of patterns like that that can be really helpful in changing how we show up. I know one thing that has changed me significantly is my morning ritual and my morning meditation and prayer and walking in nature. So, whatever that is for each of us, is to really be mindful of where it gets weaker and how can we do something or one action that might improve it or help us. What are your
That's
thoughts?
beautiful. Well, that's beautiful. And that mindfulness is a place and a space for grace. The mindfulness, if we can take a moment, any moment, and use it the way we want to utilize it, that's in a positive capacity, of course, because I'm all about positivity. Yet, how do we use our minds for that? That might be our next topic, Sue, is the topic of mindfulness.
I love it. And so, with that, let's wrap up for today. And I just appreciate you being here, Connie, with me on this journey. I appreciate all of you joining us. We are so thankful for each and every one of you. And please feel free to reach out to us via our websites with topic suggestions or thoughts on ways in which you have offered grace or continuing to work on grace. Thanks so much. Make it a great day.
Remember, a conversation can change your life. We invite you to be the best version of yourself. When you feel better, you do better.
We welcome hearing from you. To learn more about us, suggest topics to be discussed, or to reach out to us directly, visit our website